Thank you very much, Chair. I only have 6 minutes, and I certainly don't want to be rude, so I'm not really interested in theoreticals. I'm only interested in direct answers on what we're looking at. When I look at the Investment Canada webpage, it's wonderful. It reassures Canadians that you guys are there to review significant investments in Canada by non-Canadians. But when we're looking at control of 22 million hectares of Canadian forests, uh, apparently by an individual, Jackson Wijawa, I'm to understand from what you're saying was that you did not do that review because of the WTO. Is that correct?
A net benefit review on this
Net
transaction was
benefit
not
review,
conducted.
yes. So would you at least tell us, is the WTO member that you're protecting based in China?
The transaction, so the WTO relates to the nature of the firm, and in this particular
Yes.
case,
So is the firm based in China?
Paper Excellence Group, which is the holding company, is a Dutch firm. It's a Dutch holding company.
Oh, it's a Dutch firm. But you have the documents on who's the ultimate controller. So did you not check? Do you know who the ultimate controller is?
Yes.
Is it in China?
The ultimate controller is Mr. Jackson Wijawa.
Oh, I see. Okay. What's interesting, because when Premier McNeil of Nova Scotia went to deal about Northern Pulp and Paper, he flew to the Sinar offices in Shanghai because that's where the Premier needed to meet to find out about paper excellence because they worked for Sinar. So did you confirm that Sinar in Shanghai office is the ultimate controller of paper excellence? Did you do that review?
I can confirm that investments under the Investment Canada Act require us to understand the beneficial owner and the ultimate controller of the firm.
Okay, so will you tell us, is the ultimate controller Sinar?
The ultimate controller is Mr. Jackson Wijawa Limentara.
I see. Okay, because I have a briefing note here from the Nova Scotia government that says, that tells me that what you're telling me is not true. The Nova Scotia government internal document says that Paper Excellence is ultimately controlled by Asia Pulp and Paper, an integrated pulp and paper company division of Sinar. So are you saying that Asia Pulp and Paper is not in control of Paper Excellence and then up through that to Sinar? Will you turn over the filings that they do, their mandatory regulatory filings, so we know what you know?
I'm not in a position to disclose that information. It is subject to the confidentiality provisions of the Investment Canada Act.
Okay. If our committee requested it firmly, I think this would be in the Canadian interest. But I'll continue. I have an email addressed to jackson.wijawa at Asia Pulp and Paper regarding theft of Canadian intellectual property. Did you do any investigation into whether Asia Pulp and Paper is involved with Jackson Wijawa and allegations of theft of Canadian IP?
I can simply confirm that a national security review of this transaction was conducted.
And you gave him thumbs up. I guess I'm having a hard time believing you because we have evidence, including the emails that Jackson Wijawa works for Asia Pulp and Paper. We have that the Premier of Nova Scotia flew to Sinar, and yet you come here and tell me, oh, no, it's run out of Netherlands by an individual. So I'm going to ask more about Asia Pulp and Paper and whether you did your job, because it is about the interests of the Canadian people. If Jackson Wijawa works for Asia Pulp and Paper, we're dealing with a company that has serious international allegations of environmental devastation. They lost their FSC certification. There's been international environmental campaigns against Sinar. There's been default on loans. And now we have allegations of theft of Canadian IP that was bootlegged for Chinese competitors. Did you guys look at any of this in your security review? Will you confirm yes or no?
I can simply confirm that a national security review of this transaction was conducted under the factors that are considered in our national security guidelines.
Okay. So you gave thumbs up. So did you look into Asia Pulp and Paper, or did you look into this guy, Jackson Wijawa?
I can simply confirm that a national security review of this transaction was conducted under the Act.
That's it. Okay. So we've been told by whistleblowers out of Shanghai that assuming control of 22 million hectares of Canadian forest is a fiber grab for Sinar Asia Pulp and Paper. Could you explain how us turning that over to a series of shell companies that may be Asia Pulp and Paper, where Mr. Jackson Wijawa may work, that maybe Sinar, where the Premier of Nova Scotia had to fly to meet, that it's a net benefit to Canadians? The Canadian security economically, regionally, and down to the community level is not being impacted. Did you look into whether this is a fiber grab by China to take control of Canadian forests?
I would confirm that a review was conducted on this transaction, which involved the responsible government departments and agencies, including Canada's Security and Intelligence Community, led by Public Safety Canada, the Department of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, and the Department of Natural Resources. As part of the review process, Paper Excellence provided representations to Canada, including meaningful commitments to maintain Canadian representation on Resolute's board of directors and senior management team.
But you will not tell us whether or not Jackson Wijawa, you bothered to even look into whether Jackson Wijawa works for Asia Pulp and Paper and has an office at Sinar in Shanghai. Will you say whether or not you actually looked into that? Because if you didn't, that's serious negligence, and it's putting Canadian jobs, communities, and our environment at risk. If you didn't do that, what do we tell Canadian people that they should trust?
I'll say we're out of time, but I'll give you the opportunity for a brief response, and then we're going to move into our next round.
Mr. Chair, I would just note that obviously national security reviews are extraordinarily important, and we take them very seriously, and that obviously national security considerations are extraordinarily sensitive, which is why I'm not in a position to be able to reveal the specific details of the national security considerations in this transaction.